Hello, ladies and gents. Here is how to make $7,000 a month in dividends, an alternative retirement strategy for individuals under 30 years old in 2025. Now, I don't have a script. This is coming off the dome, but I did put together a very nice and easy to read Excel file. I know it sounds very exciting, but it actually is, if you give me a second to explain. But let's do a quick overview of what I'll be showing you all today. So let's make this appear. So the very first thing that I want to go over with you all is the concept of doubling. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory. The concept of doubling in finance is pretty much how long it takes for your initial investment to double. And that goes hand in hand with the rule of 72, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The second thing I wanted to go over is time and how valuable time is. And you're going to show, you're going to see when I get to the next tab, this doubling investment calculator that I created. You're going to see why time is such an incredibly valuable asset when it comes to building wealth. So that's the second thing I wanted to go over today. The third thing, as mentioned before, is the rule of 72. It kind of goes hand in hand with doubling. It essentially is the mathematical equation to determine how long it will take for you to double your money. And that initial investment can be any amount. It doesn't matter. The rule of 72 will always be the same. And yeah, moving on. I don't remember what this one was. Right. This is to showcase the power of $100,000. I'm going to showcase why you should strive to reach this $100,000 milestone, and why that just is important in general. This next one is right. So the average APY 10%. So the S&P 500, its lifetime rate of return, its APY percentage rate is about 10%. So we're going to be using this 10% calculator as our assumed rate of return when going through the calculator in the next tab. And then this last one, and then I'm going to go over at the end how to save $100,000 before the age of 30. I know that can seem like a very daunting task, and I also want to stress that this is a very specific retirement strategy for people under 30 years old, because it is using the idea of time as your advantage. And if you're past that age, you can still do it. It's just you have to retire a little bit later, and it may be more reasonable for you to do other investment strategies, other retirement strategies, and there's millions of other ones. This is just a very specific one made for people for under 30 years of age. For anyone who's interested, maybe wants to strive for this type of retirement strategy. So let's go into the details of this doubling investment calculator that I personally created from scratch. So this might seem confusing at first, but I can assure you it is actually very, very simple. So the first thing we're going to look at is the expected interest rate. Now, as I said before, you can expect a 10% return pretty safely if you just invest in the S&P 500 or the VOO or any other large ETF account. I am currently investing in VT SAX, which is Total Stock Market Admiral Shares or something like that. Doesn't matter. But it's another ETF. There's plenty of them. Doesn't really matter which one you go into, but you can expect a general return rate, especially long term, about 10%. And now to start, we're just going to say that for a first example, we're just going to say that we're starting with $1,000, right? Now, these guys are highlighted yellow because these are pretty much the only boxes that you need to edit in order for everything else to spit out the information necessary. So when we put in this 10% rate, this formula, this rule of 72 formula, spits out how many years it will take for this investment to double. So in this case, it'll take 7.2 years for this $1,000 to turn into $2,000. And you can ignore over here for now. We'll get into the dividend yield later on. But let's see how much money you can make after a certain amount of time, after starting with $1,000. So let's get to the next line. So let's say you put in $1,000 and into an investment account that earns 10% annually. And how much money would you make after 7.2 years? We kind of got rid of that already, so we're just gonna black this out. So as you can see, and this is assuming that you saved up $1,000 before the age of 30. So you're starting at 30, right? So 7.2 years, or just 7 years in the future. You're 37 now. After 7 years, there $1,000 becomes $2,000. So you made $1,000 after doing nothing, which is cool, right? Moving on, and that's after the first double, right? So let's see what happens after you double twice. Now that initial $1,000 is now $4,000. So you made $3,000 in 14 years by pretty much doing nothing, which is cool, right? I like to make money by not doing anything. Let's see what happens when you get to 3 years. So now you're at $8,000, which is cool. You're up $7,000. Let's see what doubling 4 times means. So now 28 years into the future, now we have $16,000 after just starting out with $1,000. Next up, after 5 doubles, this is 36 years into the future, so you're now 66 years old, and you now have $32,000 after just an initial investment of $1,000 at a pretty standard rate of 10%. So that's pretty cool, right? But now we're going to get into the power of 100,000. But before then, let's just say we have 10,000. Let's say we save up $10,000 by the age of 30. How do these numbers change? Well, you can see we go from 10 to 20, 20 to 40, eventually to 36 years into the future. Now you have $320,000. We just made $310,000 in 36 years by an initial $10,000 investment. Now, I don't know about you, but it's pretty easy to save $10,000, especially before the age of 30, to just make $310,000 36 years into the future. But now, we're going to go into why your goal should be to save $100,000 before the age of 30. And I realize that could be a daunting task, and that's what this next tab comes into. But let's say you had $100,000. Actually, before we do that, let's white out this for suspense. Let's do this. All right. So let's make this $100,000 now. So we're starting with $100,000, and now, in just the first 7 years, we just made $100,000 by doing absolutely nothing. All we did was throw $100,000 into a standard account, made 10% yearly for 7 years straight, and we just made $100,000 for doing absolutely nothing. And let's see what happens after you get 2 doubles. 400,000. 3 doubles. 800,000. After 4 doubles, you're crossing the $1 million mark. You're now at $1.6 million. And now, after 5 doubles, $3.2 million. So at the age of 66, 36 years after your initial investment at 30 years old, your money has doubled 5 times, equaling $3.2 million.
Jordan fades back, swoosh, and that's the game! Nothing further, Your Honor.
Which means you made $3.1 million in 36 years. I might have repeated myself a couple times there, but it is what it is. So now, this is where, but now we can start looking at here. So as you can see, where did these numbers come from? Well, simply put, this is a dividend yield. So assuming you moved, so let's say you make these $3.2 million, right? You look up an ETF that has a high dividend yield. For this case, I kind of use the percentage that Vanguard's high dividend yield stock has. I forgot what the ticket symbol is. The last time I checked was about 2.6 something. And I know there are some that are below, some that are above, but just for the sake of this example, I just chose 2.63%, mainly because it brings you to this magical $7,000 monthly annual dividend. So essentially, at 36 years in the future, at age 66, you will be making $7,000 a month in just dividends, essentially giving you an $84,000 a year job that doesn't require work at all, which is pretty cool. And you could pretty much retire on that. And the beauty of this is that you pretty much stop investing after 30. So from age 30 to 66, you don't really have to worry about like like pretty much adding to your retirement age. I mean, retirement account. I would still do like if your job does a percent match to a 401k or whatnot. I would still do that. I would still do whatever minimums necessary, whatever opportunities are presented. I would still take advantage of them. But you don't have to like go out of your way pretty much anymore up until retirement, because your money is going to start working for yourself. As long as you just never touch this money and reinvest the dividends that come with it, then you'll have $3.2 million pretty much waiting for you. And now, so let's do it one step further. Let's say you don't want to retire at 66. Let's say you want to wait for it to double one more time. Well, in that case, 43 years into the future, that is 6 doubles. At age 73, you now have $6.4 million with a monthly dividend amount of $14,000. So at that point, you are pretty rich. You pretty much could just vacation the rest of your life modestly. And this amount will just keep increasing by the month at this point. If you want to get even, I think you'll be like 80 years old at this point, right? Then you'll be at 28,000. Like, it just gets ridiculous after a certain period of time. After 40 years, you just become ridiculously rich. As long as you just never touch your money and you only take the dividends out, right? And keep in mind, you are reinvesting the dividends up until age 36. There's no point in taking it out. This is money that you don't want to touch. These numbers probably would be higher if you incorporated dividends, but I figured just leave it out. Any extra money is a bonus to you, and you only need this much money anyways to retire, to be honest. At least in the year 2070, I would say $7,000 a month, I think, would get it done, as long as you're still not like living you may not be living a lavish lifestyle, but you definitely can live a tame lifestyle at this point, without pretty much having to work again, especially at this point when you start making $14,000 at age 73. But I digress. But this is all assuming that you had the bare minimum 10% interest rate, which is not bad. 10% is perfectly fine. But let's say hypothetically you outperform the market for 36 years, right? Let's say instead of 10%, you actually were making 12% annually on average. Now, that just changed your years to double to 6 instead of 7.2. Now, if you look here, how long does it take for you to make that same $3.2 million? Well, since it's only doubling at every 6 years instead of 7.2, your new age of retirement is 60 if your interest rate just did a little bit better. And 12% is definitely a manageable percentage. So at 60 years old, you can retire with $7,000 a month of dividends. And then let's be, very generous. Let's say you had 15%. I mean, you shouldn't really expect that to happen, especially if you just leave the money and don't touch it. But it certainly can happen. You can make 15%. Just depends on how the market does. Then your year double becomes only 4.8, which means in order to make $3.2 million in your account, it will only take 24 years after an initial investment of $100,000. And by that time, you will be 54 years old after 5 doubles with $7,000 a month. So this is just very simple math, really. I hope even like the most beginner of beginners can understand what's going on. It's just showcasing the power of doubling your money. And it's really simple. A very simple concept. Anybody can follow. But now I think we should go up to the hard part. Let's see, how can you reach $100,000 by age 30? That's where this table comes in. Now, obviously the younger you are, the better. because, like I said before, time is a very valuable asset, and an 18-year-old is going to be able to save up $100,000 before age 30 a lot easier than a 26-year-old. For example, let's just take the age 26. So if you're 26 right now, let's assume that you have zero savings. So you only have 4 years left before you turn age 30. That's 48 months, 208 weeks. Yearly, you will need to save $25,000 a year in order to save $100,000. That is $2,000 a month, about $500 a week. So that is a substantial amount of money to be saving. You'd have to have a really high-paying job and live well below your means, maybe live from home, but that is a very daunting task. Whereas if you're 18, which, first of all, if you're 18 years old and you're watching this right now, congratulations. You have an asset that many other people just don't have, and that is time. And time is extremely valuable, especially in the market. So congratulations. If you're 18 years old, in order to accumulate $100,000 by age 30, all you need to do is save up $160 per week for the next 12 years, essentially. And of course, this is assuming that you're making 0% interest on your money. In actuality, if you're actually putting this in like a high yield savings account or something, your money might make like $20,000, for example, by itself. So you actually only need to save up $80,000 and not actually save up $100,000, because the money that you are saving will be making money itself. And so over time, you probably make $20,000 just by saving up this money. So you really don't need to actually save $100,000 exactly. You probably just need to save up about $80,000. And the $20,000 will be made from the money that you saved, which equates to $100,000 before age 30. So I hope that makes sense. You can take a look at this calculator. What is your age? How much money do you already have? And then, how much money if you don't have any money, how much money would you need to save up per week in order to equal $100,000 before 30? So I hope this was helpful and pretty insightful. And I will put a link in the description, a copy of this file, so you could play around with it yourself. You could, put your own interest rate in. Let's say you think you're able to make 20% interest rate, which doubles every 3.6 years. And I think there's 3 more hidden here, actually. These are a little bit of an Easter egg. But if you were to make 20% interest rate for 36 years after an initial $100,000 investment, then you would have $102 million. That's ridiculous. You would have $102 million net worth by age 66. You'd be making a monthly dividend of $224,000, which is ridiculous. And then a dividend yearly amount of $2.7 million, pretty much. So if you can make 20% of your money, then hallelujah. You are one of the richest people in the world. So I hope this was helpful. And get to saving. Peace.